Yeah. So we all knows that friction is not the new word we are studying first time from 8th class. You are keep on studying the same thing. So in last class, I taught you about kinetic friction and how to calculate the kinetic friction and what is the formula for calculating kinetic friction. And we have been found that the kinetic friction formula is equals to mu k into n. This is the formula for kinetic friction we have been done, and we calculated some sums also we have done. Am I right, everybody? Clear?
Yes.
So now let us come to the static friction in our today's class. As I told you already, static friction is possessed by the body when there is a tendency of relative motion. Actually, the body is not in motion, but it wants to be ready to move. That is what we can say tendency of relative motion. So that is what we can say the friction possessed by a body when the body is in rest. That is what we used to call as static friction. Now observe, kinetic friction is somewhat like there is not necessary to think much. Easily you can calculate it even if it is in numericals. But let us comes to the static friction. So the many things you have to be very careful, and there is a always place for like what we can say curiosity. So you can grasp the interest in this static friction. So you all can see that when you are solving the numericals also. So as we all knows that now static friction also like kinetic friction will write a points. So it is not actually existed in during motion. So there is a tendency of relative motion. So the tendency of relative motion only means in the sense of body is said to be in what, guys? Everybody, body is said to be in.
Yes.
Clear, everyone? Understand, Laksha? But now you can go to the kinetic friction. So you might be remember one point. Kinetic friction, according to the class 11th, it is depends on the surfaces, but according to the class 11th, kinetic friction is always remains what we have done. Everybody.
Constant.
Kinetic friction is always remains constant when the surfaces are started moving over each other. Am I right, everybody? But if it comes to the static friction is not actually constant. It is always variable. That is what we used to call as self-adjusting. So there is no particular fixed value for static friction. It is always will varies. Sir, how much it can varies? There will be a range for it. The static friction always varies from 0 less than or equals to static friction less than or is equals to capital F. This capital F is called as limiting friction. You will understand what is that. Limiting friction. What is this, everybody? F limiting, called as limiting friction. So the static friction value always varies between 0 to limiting friction. So what is this limiting friction? That is what F limiting is equals to formula, all of you observe, mu s into n. So mu s is the coefficient of static friction. N means what? We all people knows. What is the n? All of you.
Normal.
Yes. So normal reaction. So remember all of you, now I am saying you, limiting friction means the maximum friction where the body is almost ready to move. The friction possessed by the body, if there is, for example, see, the maximum, if the frictional force crosses more than 12 newtons, then the applied force is crossed more than 12 newtons, like 12.1, 12.2, 12.3, then the body will start moving. So means up to 12 newtons, there is no motion in the body. That is what? The maximum friction where the body is almost ready to move. So remember, when the body is posing maximum friction, anybody can tell? All of you? When it is ready to move, keep it in mind this point. Suppose if the body is in completely state of rest, all of now itself I am revealing the things. Now observe very carefully, there is a body. Now nobody is pushing, nobody is pulling. Now it is having some frictional force. Let me take static friction. But this static friction is not maximum. Do you understand, everyone? All of you? It is not maximum. For example, I am applying 10 Newton force, no motion. 10.5 Newton, no motion. 11 Newton, no motion. 12 Newton also no motion. So that is equals to the frictional force, static friction. Body remains in state of rest. So if I cross, for example, 12.1 Newton, do you understand all of you? Then the body will start moving. Means in the sense of at what is the maximum? 12 Newtons. That is the maximum friction possessed by the body. That is that it's ready to move. Next step, immediately it will start moving forward. That is what the friction we used to call as limiting friction. Understand, brothers? Mr. Rudreswar?
Yes, sir.
Clear? So the friction which is possessed by the body, when it is ready to move, the like maximum friction will be exerted by the body when it is ready to move. So that is what you should called as limiting friction. Now, many things I will say you. And one more thing you all also observe very carefully. If suppose you have placed any kind of object in surface, now you are trying to push it or pull it, understanding? Applying. The body is not moving. So there is the force if you apply, understanding, greater than their limiting friction. Understand? Then you can notice the movement of the body. Now you tell me, once the body will start moving forward, do you think you need to apply more force or less force? Anybody can tell? All of you? Once the body will start moving, do you think you need to apply more force or you need to apply the less force? Yes, what will you feel? Less force. So the making, the tendency, once it will overcome that like rest to motion, at that point, peaks point only, maximum friction is present. That friction only, what friction we used to call, everybody? We used to call as limiting friction. Okay, so that is what. So that is why we will say the cell that static friction is not constant. It will be varies from 0 to F limiting, means limiting friction. So when the body is having maximum friction, everybody, when it is ready to move, do you understand it? When it is ready to move, the body will possess maximum friction. That friction only we used to called as what? Everybody, we used to called as limiting friction. Understanding, Amma? All of you, please respond. Now, once the once the body will start moving forward, then the applied force will never be equals to this limiting friction. Definitely, it will be less easier to move the object once it will start moving forward. Understand, Aswita, what I am saying? All of you? So that is what. So that is why limiting friction, no formula. Why it is not having any formula, everybody? Because it is not constant. It will be always what? All of you? Variable. And the range of limiting, static friction is 0 to F maximum. That is what? F limiting. Do you all understand, everybody? Clear? I'll explain while I'll solving the examples. You all will experience it. Many things. Clear, guys? Please respond. All of you. Yes?
Yes.
So now from this, you can understand that when the body will start moving, when I apply the applied force is more than static friction or more than limiting friction? Anybody? Body moves
More than limiting.
Yes. Body moves only if applied force is, be very, very important one. Applied force is greater than, understanding, maximum static friction. So that maximum static friction only we used to call as something. What we used to call, everybody? The maximum static friction only we used to call as what? Yes, please. What
Limiting.
Limiting. Do you understand, everybody? Very, very important statement. So the maximum, the applied force is greater than the maximum static friction. That is what we used to call as limiting, F limiting. Then only the body will move. That is why we will say the body will maximum friction, it will be possessed when the body is ready to move. Do you understand, guys? Next step, it will start moving. Means at that point, it will be having maximum friction. Clear, everybody? Understand what I'm saying? All of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so that is what. So that's all about the static friction. So let us solve plenty of sums. You all can experience it. Sum to sum, your curiosity will grow. So you can see that. But you should involve and you have to solve. You have to try to make it after first question. You can. So there is a question now. Let me take all of you, draw fastly. So there is a surface now and 4 kg object is moving. 4 kg object is moving or not, we don't know. You should tell me. So the applied force is F is equals to 6 newtons. What is the applied force, everybody? How much it is? 6 newtons. Now you should tell either the body is moving or not, or the body is in state of rest. We have to fix it. So find the friction. And which friction? Which friction, guys? Anybody can tell? Either it is static friction or kinetic friction.
Static.
You don't know.
Static.
You don't know. You cannot find. How you can say it is a static friction? If the limiting friction, the applied force is greater than the limiting friction, then it is a kinetic friction. Am I right or wrong? Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
That is what you should be very careful. So first you should find what is F limiting. Then if the F limiting is more than the applied force, the body is said to be in what? Rest. If the F limiting is less than the applied force, then the body is in what? State of rest. Clear, everybody? So that is what. So find acceleration also. So these are the two questions. So let us see how to solve it. I'll say. So as we all knows that if any object is placed on the surface, that is what 4 kg object. So always something acting downward direction. What is that, everybody?
Weight.
Please weight. Weight is equals to mg. Mg means m is 4g, and opposite to that, perpendicular to that, something is acting. What is that, everyone?
Normal.
Normal.
Yeah.
So n is equals to, I will say 4g. Am I right, Pradosh? Clear?
Sir.
That is. Now we all knows that just now I taught you the formula. F limiting. What is the formula F limiting? All of you. F limiting is equals to mu s into n. So I have forgot to give the mu s. So that is what? Coefficient of static friction, which is equals to 0.2. That's all. Find it. What is the maximum limiting force, all of you? F limiting is equals to, fastly, 0.2 into 4 into mg, correct? 4g. So 4 into g value, let me take how much is
10.
it? G value is equals to 10. So which is
10.
equals to 40 into 2, with 0.2, which is
8.
equal to how many newtons? All of you.
8 Newton.
8 newtons. So the F limiting is greater than F applied. So means in the sense of body is in state of rest or body is in state of motion. All of you. Body is in state of? Yes.
Rest.
State of?
Rest.
So means in the sense of it is a static friction or kinetic friction. All of you. It is the static friction. So can I say now static friction is equals to, what is the value? Friction is equals to how much, Amma? Friction equals to how much? All of you.
8 Newton.
8 newtons. So here is the only problem now. So do you think the friction is 8 newtons? Anybody can guess? At least be logical. All of you observe very carefully. So there is an object now. There is an object now which is equals to 4 kg. Now the applied force is actually the 6 newtons. Now the frictional force is 8 newtons. Means in the sense of body must move to this side. Am I right or wrong, Mr. Rudreswar? Clear?
Few newtons, sir.
Yes, all of you. Body
Yes,
has
sir.
to move. Am I right, Pradosh? If the frictional force is greater than the applied force, body has to move. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, sir.
Yes, but it is a static friction. Means in the sense of your answer is right or wrong?
Wrong.
Wrong.
Wrong. Do you understand what I'm saying? As the friction is 8 newtons means, what does it mean? The body started moving. But what is the statement? The F limiting is greater than applied force. Means in the sense of static friction it is. Static friction means body must be in rest. If you mention the friction is 8 newtons, then your answer is right or wrong? Yes, please.
Wrong.
Wrong. Then
Wrong.
what, sir? Keep in mind a statement here I'll put you. If the body is in rest, all of you remember, if your body is in rest, okay, the static friction is equals to F applied. F applied. So then what is the static friction value? Can anybody tell me?
6 newtons.
6 newtons. That is why I said static friction is it a constant or it is a variable? Everybody. It is the
Variable.
Understanding? For example, if applied force is 7 newtons, then what is the static friction, Mr. Pradosh? Static friction is also 7 newtons. Understanding, everybody? If applied force is, for example, 1 newton, then what is the static friction? Anybody can tell me? 1 newton. If applied force is, for example, 2 newtons, then what is the static friction? Anybody can tell? 2 newton. Understand, all of you? Clear? If the body is in state of rest, Aswita, can you catch this point or not? If the body is in state of rest, always the static friction is equal to applied force. Clear, Mr. Rudreswa, Pradosh?
Yes, sir.
That is what. So applied force is 6 newtons. So that what is the static friction? How much it is? Yes, please.
Force applied.
Force applied. For example, applied force is, for example, 8 newtons. Then what is the static friction? Anybody can tell?
8 Newton.
8 Newton.
Understanding? If suppose applied force is greater than 8 newtons, then it is a static friction. Am I right? Static. It is not a static friction. What will happen? It will become
Kinetic.
Kinetic.
it will become kinetic friction. Do you all understand what I am saying? Everybody clear? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So
Yes,
now
sir.
what is the answer? Static friction is equal to how many newtons? Applied force is 6. So 6 newtons. If suppose applied force is 8 newtons, then what is the static friction? Static friction is also
8 Newton.
that is by the time the body is ready to move. If the applied force is greater than 8.1, suppose 8.1, then the applied force is greater than the limiting force. By that time, if it is applied force is 8 newtons, then static force is equals to F limiting. Am I right or wrong, everybody? Are you clear, everybody? Yes? All of you? Understanding?
Yes, sir.
Sudreswar, can I repeat once again? See, listen. If applied force is, if F applied is equals to 8 newtons, by that time we got it, F limiting also how much? F limiting is also how much? 8 newtons.
8
Newton.
Essence of F static is also how much? 8 newtons.
8
So
8 Newton.
8.
that is the maximum static force. That is the reason we'll say static force is a what force? Variable force.
Variable.
So if
Variable.
the applied force is just 8.1 Newton, for example, just greater than 8 Newtons, then automatically the body will turns into static friction to kinetic friction. Am I right or wrong? Everybody clear what I'm saying? All of you?
Yes, sir.
That is the reason I said,
Yeah.
when the body will possess maximum static friction, when the body moves, ready to move. The point where it will ready to move is the maximum static friction possessed by the body. Are you clear, everybody?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So please solve.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, very, very important one. Okay. So that is why I said it will increase our curiosity from the question to question. So that is why I can mention here, it is a variable, and the word I have written here. What is the word I have written? You can see here. It is the self-adjusting. Understanding? Automatically it will adjust. If applied force is 1, static friction also 1. If applied force is 2, static friction is 2. If applied force is 3 newtons, applied static friction also 3 newtons. It is self-adjusting, varying, variable force. That is why it is called, there is no formula for static friction. So for static friction, we have a formula only for what, guys? F limiting. F limiting. That is what you should remember. Okay, guys? Everybody clear? Mr.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Sai Karthik. Understand or not? Murali, Narayan.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Aswita, what about you? Clear?
Yes, sir.
That is. Okay. Next question. If you understand it, then next question you solve. See, unless you involve and you solve, you people cannot be. I know what will happen. So please kindly make it. So question number 2. Let me take it. So there is again a 4 kg body. Now all of you observe very carefully. There is a 4 kg body. Now, okay, applied force is 20 newtons. What is applied force, everybody? Yes,
20
please.
Newton.
20 newtons. Clear? Then the static coefficient of static coefficient is 0.6, and as well I am giving kinetic coefficient is equals to 0.4. So why I am giving two values? If suppose the limiting friction, the applied force is greater than the F limiting, then we have to go with the mu K or mu S. We have to go with the
Okay.
mu K. That is understanding, everyone? For those clear? So find friction force. Find friction force. Be very clear. I am going very slowly because I want to make you to understand instead of studying very faster. Physics is like this only. So please kindly understand. Doubt or please immediately ask me. Now start doing everybody. Find it and tell me first F limiting. Make it quick. Always you should write a statement. What is that? When we can say body is in motion. If applied force is greater than
Greater.
FL. That is what? Maximum what friction, guys? F limiting is only
Static
called
friction.
as maximum static friction. Clear? So that is very important point. You should write it. So find it F limiting fastly, everyone. Aswita, I'm calling, but no response. Are you solving or not? So 4 kg. So 4 kg means immediately you have to draw a surface. So downwards weight is acting. What is the weight?
4G.
Normal N. Now applied force is how much? Applied force is 20 Newton.
20 Newton.
So we have to find F limiting. F limiting is equals to mu s into N. From this we can find it N is equals to 4G. So that's all. Solve it. How much it is? Make it quick. So FL is equals to left limiting is equals to mu s value 0.6 into N value 4 into 10. So which is equals to
24.
which is equals to how many newtons? All of you. 24 newtons.
24.
Okay. So now all of you observe the F applied. F applied is equals to 20 newtons and F limiting is equals to 24 newtons. So now body is said to be in state of rest or state of motion.
Rest.
State of
Rest.
means in the sense of. So static friction. Static friction we all people knows. It is a fixed or variable. All of you. Static friction
Variable.
is what?
Variable.
So
Variable.
by that time, if F limiting is F applied is less than F limiting or F limiting is greater than F applied, so by that time the friction, static friction is equals to what is that, guys? F
20 Newton.
applied. So the static friction is equals to how much is the answer? All of you.
20 Newton.
20 Newton.
That is what you should understand. Okay, everybody clear? Yes, please. It is the
Yes,
same.
sir.
For
Yes, sir.
example, if F applied is 10 newtons, then what is the static friction? Anybody can tell? 10 newtons.
10 Newton.
If
10
F
Newton.
applied is 12 newtons, then what is the static friction? Same case.
12 Newton.
Static friction also 12 newton. But F limiting is how much? F limiting is how much? 20.
24 Newton.
24 Newton.
That is you should understand. Okay, brothers? Clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, very important. Mr. Sai Karthik, understand or not? Mr. Narayan, I'm calling you. Respond. It's not
Yes,
like
sir.
computers. Murali Puriyamara. Do it
Yes,
now.
sir.
Aswita completed. Solve it now fastly. Make it quick. If suppose applied force is greater than F limiting, what will happen?
Kinetic friction.
Kinetic friction. So that is you should remember. Make it quick. Call to that Monish. Anybody? Do you understand? Everyone, static friction is one of the important ones. Frictions, again, 2 more lectures will be there. So definitely there is important concept for JEE. Angles, this friction in angles, that inclined surfaces and all. And then there is another concept will be there. Once that's over, this chapter will be completed. Then we'll shift to the 5th chapter. You have to complete it quickly, make it quick. Anyhow, don't worry. Volume 2 is very small chapters. I will take it. But that's all. We are not preparing for only board. Board in the sense of, I'll say static friction, 3 points. Okay, concept mudincha over. But I want to make you like, you should start loving physics. Then only you can do it. That is the only target. You should love to solve numericals in physics. Okay, so that is what. So next question, everybody. I'll draw the question. You should finish it. Either it is a static friction or kinetic friction. You should say that. So 2 kg applied force is 20 Newton. Okay, the coefficient of static friction is 0.6. Coefficient of kinetic friction is 0.4. Find friction and as well as acceleration. Okay, so that's what it is. So you keep it in mind in a point, very important point. When the body, we can say motion, if F applied is, all of you, F applied is greater than FL, that is what? Limiting force. Maximum, what is F limiting? We used to call it as Maximum static.
Maximum static friction.
Maximum static friction. That's all. Okay. See, more than this concept, nobody can. You have to solve it. Fastly solve it. Only just take 2 minutes. That's all. You have to finish it. Make it quick. Ashita, tell me the answer. I'm expecting from you only. Limiting friction, please.
Sir, 12.
12. Very good. Next, what else? Others. You cannot solve. Mr. Murali solving.
12.
Yes, sir.
Ashita, you completed 12 newtons. Have you got it? Sai Gardik. Don't be like a kid. I'm saying you. You have to make it. Do it fast.
12, sir.
Yeah, 12. Then apply. See that 12 newtons means what? Applied force is greater than limiting friction. So that means in the sense of what? It is not static.
Kinetic.
What is that kinetic friction? Find the value. Do it fast. So if it is
8
kinetic
newtons,
friction, there will be acceleration also. See, before questions and all, acceleration is there, but then they asked acceleration. But as it is static friction, acceleration is what? Acceleration is 0. But now we have kinetic friction, so that you have to calculate acceleration also. So let us see how to solve it. So everyone you should try. Simply sitting means I am not at all happy. I am saying that. So there is we all people know there is a body. So 2 kg. So weight of the object is 2g. Normal is n. So n is equals to how much, everybody? 2g. So F limiting is equals to what is the formula? Mu s into n, which is equals to mu s is 0.6 into 2 into g value, how much? 10, which is equals to how many newtons? If you have applied 12 newtons, means in the
12
sense
Newton.
F applied is greater than what? F applied is greater than F limiting.
Yeah, up.
Okay, so means in the sense of it is not a static friction. So the body is in motion, means in the sense of it is what friction? Kinetic friction.
Kinetic.
So immediately kinetic friction means immediately your mind should say it is not variable. What it is that? Everybody, it is constant. So that mu k into n, which is equals to 0.4 into n value, 2 into 10. So which is equals to how much is the answer? Everybody.
8 Newton.
8 Newton.
8
So it is remains constant or variable? It is remains constant.
Constant.
Okay. Then we have to find acceleration also. So we all knows that F net is equals to ma. F is equals to F net divided by m. So what is F net, everybody? F net means what? Applied force is 20. Frictional force is 8 divided by mass is how much? 2. So which is equals to 12 divided by 2. So what is the acceleration, all of you?
Meter per second.
6 meter per second.
6 meter per second square.
Okay, so do it fast. Understand, Aswita, Isali, Mane and Samya?
Yes, sir.
Meeting is by 9:30, not for 10:30. You have to be. Static friction, very important concept. Why this much late? Always. Make it quick now. Do you understand, Mr. Narayan? Prados, completed?
Completed, sir.
Yeah. Just you have to love to solve this one. Okay, that is what is I'm saying. You have to find the interest. Now, what is the cause of this friction? Whatever it is, cause of friction. So be very careful. The cause of friction is not the first time you are studying in 11th class, 9th class, 8th class itself will study. The friction cause, if you observe that, maybe the surface appears to be smooth, but there will be a irregularities. That is the main cause of friction. Either it is a static friction or it is a kinetic friction. Irregularities in surfaces. Suppose if you take the earth and there is a box, if you notice it, and if you observe here, if you zoom it and if you notice it, so there will be interlockings. That is what? Because of irregularities. Understand, everybody? So when I'm trying to push this object or pull this object, these irregularities are locked each other. So that if you want, that is what is causing for frictional force, static friction. So if you want to apply this, make the body to move. So it must be, the applied force must be what? The applied force must be greater than, all of you, limiting.
F limiting.
Okay, F limiting. So that is what you should remember. Okay, everybody, clear? All of you? So when this
Yes,
F limiting is maximum, everybody, anybody can tell? When this F limiting is maximum, F limiting
Body
is
starts to
greater than F kinetic when the body is ready to
move.
but is not in
Motion.
motion. But it is not in motion. All of you understanding? It is ready to move. So that is why F limiting is actually highest. The highest frictional force is what force? No kinetic friction, no static friction. So which is the highest frictional force, everybody? Highest frictional force is F limiting. Do you understand, all of you? Yes. So
Yes,
that is
sir.
what we will say. It is just about to move. So it is not in rest, it is not in motion, it's ready to move. That is what we used to call as limiting friction. So who is always greater, everybody? F static, F limiting, F kinetic. Who is maximum, highest, always?
F limiting.
F
F limiting.
That is what you should remember. Now, I will draw the graph. Very, very important. That is what between friction versus applied force. Okay. So please mark it and understand very carefully. I'll say you now. So totally we are having 3 frictions now. F static friction, F limiting friction, and F kinetic friction. Clear, everybody? So that is what I'm writing commonly, friction. Now, all of you observe very carefully. So, and applied force. Applied force. For example, I'm having a body. Be very careful. I'm having a body. I know that if applied force is greater than 20 newtons, then only the body will start move. Do you understand, Mr. Pradosh, what I'm saying? Rudra sir? Yes.
Yes,
So
sir.
for example, if applied force is 1 Newton, then what about the static friction also, everybody?
1 Newton.
1 Newton. If applied force is, for example, 10 Newton, then static friction also how much? All of you? 10 Newton. Yes or no? Please respond.
Yes, sir.
So there will be a linear graph till this body is in state of rest. Am I right? Will you accept with me? All of you agree with me or not? Yes. There is a frictional force maximum. It has reaches to the maximum. That maximum is called as what? All of you. For example, FA is equals to 20 Newton. I'm taking example. Be very careful. Example. Then FS is equals to also what? All of you. 20 Newton. Am I right?
20.
Please respond. That is what F
Yes, sir.
limiting. That is only we used to call as F limiting. FA is equals to FL maximum. F limiting. So that's all. We are having a maximum peaks, highest frictional force at F limiting. That is what maximum static friction. Once the body will reach us to that point, by that time, the applied force will be decreases or increases. Everybody, suddenly it will start moving. The applied force will be decreases or increases. Everyone,
Decrease.
decreasing. So there is a definitely drastical decreases. And once the body will start moving, then we all knows that kinetic friction. Body will possess kinetic friction, but the kinetic friction is remains constant or variable. Please respond.
Constant.
Constant. Constant means how you are
Constant.
expecting graph. Either it is parallel to x-axis or inclined to x-axis.
Parallel to it.
Parallel to x-axis. Understand, Pradosh? Most important graph it is. Do you understand, all of you? So this is what actually maximum point. This is what limiting friction. After that, there is a decrease in force, decrease in friction, because body is already started moving. And once it is continue to move, so the friction will never varies. That is why the friction is remains constant. So that is the friction we are showing parallel to what, everybody? Parallel to x-axis. So means in the sense of, by the time body is in what? Kinetic. Kinetic means body is said to be in what?
Motion.
Motion. Do you understand, Amma? Clear, Amma, everybody? Please respond. So motion in the sense of applied, the kinetic friction is less than the applied, F limiting. I mean, will you agree with me or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, the kinetic,
Yes, sir.
kinetic friction must be less than limiting friction. Then only the body is in motion. So now if you notice it, the kinetic friction that mu k, the kinetic friction, I can write it, is also less than limiting friction. That is what you should remember. Is it okay, guys? All of you? Yes, please.
Yes, sir.
But if you
Yes,
notice it, this Fk is remains what? This Fk is remains constant. That is what you have to remember. So this is what about that. That is why we will say the static friction is always varies between the 0 to